Welcome in, everyone. Welcome back to your favorite fantasy football show. Isaac Durham here, alongside Tarian Rogers, and we are your fantasy GMs. Tarian, big week this week. What are you looking forward to?
Man, for fantasy football purposes, bro, I think to me this is the most keep it simple week. There's a lot of injured quarterbacks, so if you're looking to stream some defenses, look at all the quarterbacks with teams with injured quarterbacks. The Raiders got a pretty good matchup with the Dolphins this week. No Tua. I'm curious to see your Bears with finally looking at the young rookie Fields.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know the Colt situation yet. How do you sprain two ankles? That's the question I want to know. How do you sprain both of your ankles? How clumsy you have to be to sprain two ankles?
See, I'm wondering if it's more like he sprained the one and then he put all the pressure on the other and played through it, and then he just old man Carson Wentz injury prone just hurt the other one too, and he's like, I'm out. I can't walk.
That's crazy. So it's like with that, I'm kind of the Titans are a defense that that you don't necessarily always look at, but this week I'm kind of like, I don't know.
Well, and the weird reports were that Indianapolis is planning to play two quarterbacks. That's what I heard today.
That's never a good thing. That's never a good thing.
Two wrongs don't make it right. Nah. Brett Hundley and then Jacob Eason both being talked about as playing.
So again, yeah, two ankles, baby. I heard it 2 chains, but never 2 ankles. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, bro. It's just that's what I'm looking forward to. It's just, to me, this is, like I said, it's the most keep it simple week. I'm gonna just go talk about my lineups real quick. So I had Justin Herbert starting in the 2 leagues. I'm bitching him for Daniel Jones. Why Daniel Jones, you ask? Because Daniel Jones is a very mobile quarterback. He's had 21 and 29 points respectively the last 2 weeks, and he's going up against a bum Falcons defense. Yeah. So to me, I like the matchup, right? So he's available.
The quarterback 4 so far.
Right? So he's available in most of our leagues. So
yeah.
This week you don't have to overthink it, So that's what I'm looking for from a fantasy standpoint, is how just simple this week should be. Tonight's game is a simple game. When we're talking about the injured quarterbacks, I'm Davis Mills, I like the Panthers defense, tonight against Davis Mills. So if you can add a defense real quick, go get the Panthers defense.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay, so let's stick with that game. Obviously it's tonight, like you said, Carolina at Houston. Do you believe in Brandon Cooks in this matchup now that General Mills is under center?
General Mills. Oh man, start DC, bro. The DC disrespect has to end somewhere, bro. It has to end. It does. He's number 1 in passing yards right now. But
no, keep disrespecting him, and he'll keep playing the way he is, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Keep it up. But General Mills. If we're gonna talk about General Mills and Brandon Cooks, I feel like down the stretch, those are the garbage points. I think that's where the garbage points are going to come down, because I don't see how this game could be a close game. I really don't. It's Thursday. It's a short week. It wouldn't shock me, because Brandon Cooks has been he got 14 targets last week, right? So he 9 catches for how many? 14 targets is a lot. There's no
one big thing to note is that no other receiver on the team top 2 targets. So
I was just about to say that. So yeah, great minds think alike. I was just about to say that. So it's like when you look at the Texans receiving, who else are they passing it to besides him? So I mean, off the strength of volume, yes, he should be fine. But it's just like, how much are we going to go with? Because I look at certain other matchups, like Sterling Shepard to me was available in a few different leagues, and he's number 1 in receptions in the league right now, and that's who Daniel Jones thrown it to against the Falcons. So I think that's a better matchup. So there don't
Hold on though. Is it not going to be a big Mark Ingram night or what? You got a rookie quarterback and you got the old Ingram that soaks up a ton of carries. I could see him being pretty decent for fantasy. No? No? Okay, maybe we should take Fidel's advice then.
The Carolina Panthers defense is actually really, really good. The last 2 weeks, they week 1, they went against Zach Wilson and the Jets. Last week, they went up against Jameis Winston, and they made Jameis Winston look like Jameis Winston. So it's just it's crazy, so they're actually a pretty good defense, So I don't trust any. If I would trust any Texans player, like you said, it would be Brandon Cooks because of the targets. But
well, real quick,
I think there's better choices.
Carolina's given up the least amount of fantasy points to the running back position so far.
Okay.
So maybe not a Mark Ingram kind of night, but you would start Cooks maybe?
Just off of volume, yes. But that would be the only Texans player I would start. But I hope he does fail because in one of my leagues, somebody is starting him against me. So don't do nothing tonight, Brandon Cooks. Don't cook, Brandon.
Yeah. Well, let's go to the other side then. Carolina, obviously CMC, must start. DJ Moore is a must start. We'll get into Sam Darnold a little bit. What do you think about Robbie Anderson? Seems like he's a little touchdown dependent right now. Do you believe in him this week? I
do because of the matchup. And again, I'm very trigger happy, and I dropped him because I have him in a number of my leagues.
Oh, wow.
I dropped him for Sterling Shepard. So,
wow.
Mind you, I dropped him for Sterling Shepard's been available in all my leagues. I have no idea why. And the guy Osborne, too, from the Vikings. I like him a lot, too. KJ Osborne has been doing a lot. And for me, I'm more of I'm a target dependent person when I look at wide receivers. And Sam Darnold's been having a great season, by the way. But I'm very target dependent upon my wide receivers. And I just look at the Carolina Panthers offense, and there's just a lot of mouths to feed. You have DJ Moore, you have Run CMC. These are guys that are getting way more targeted. And they just see Robbie Anderson, to me, as a vertical threat. And that's really all he's been doing is just going vertical. And because of that, it's just there's some weeks where he's not going to do anything. And then there's some weeks tonight where I feel like he's going to explode. And for me, I'd rather have the consistency of knowing that this guy is going to be there at least for me week after week, right? And just with Robbie Anderson, I just can't say that. So I have dropped him in the number of my leagues.
It's so crazy how much a touchdown makes a difference, too, because in week 1, he only had 3 targets. He had 1 reception. It just so happened to go for 57 yards and a touchdown, so he scored 12.7 PPR points, where last week he had 6 targets, 3 receptions, 38 yards, no touchdown, and now, some people are thinking like you, let's drop this guy.
Yeah. I just got an itchy trigger finger, bro. If you piss me off 1 week, I was damn near about to drop George Kittle for no reason. I know not to drop George Kittle, but it's I just have an itchy trigger finger.
Don't listen to Tarian tonight.
I have an itchy trigger finger. If you piss me off,
if you got an itchy trigger finger, look to trade him. Someone will want him. Don't give him up for nothing.
I won't trade him. I'm gonna keep him, but I'm just saying that's just how my mind works. If you piss me off 1 week, I'm just gonna could you imagine me? I have Derrick Henry, right? Derrick Henry explodes last week. Could you imagine after week 1 having an itchy trigger finger, being pissed off, and trading Derrick Henry? I'd have felt stupid, right? So yeah, don't.
Did you see how many yards he got after first contact in that game? Because he had 184 or whatever, but how many yards he actually accumulated after first contact? Did you see that number?
What's the number?
162.
I just know he's the most disrespectful runner I've ever seen in my life.
Oh my goodness.
Besides, I feel like he's in that Adrian Peterson mode. Adrian Peterson was the most disrespectful runner I've seen, or Marshawn Lynch. I remember William Gay on the Steelers. And Adrian Peterson ran him over and stepped on his chest. That was the most disrespectful run I've ever seen in my life. Mm-hmm. If you step on my chest, we got to fight. I'm sorry. I'm probably not going to win the fight, but we're going to have to. There's going to have to be some ramifications for that. You're not just going to just step on my chest. That's crazy. He's in that level of disrespect. That's crazy.
Yeah, he's ridiculous. Definitely a better runner once it comes in the second half. He's got that Muhammad Ali type of approach. Wear you out, boom, I'm going to go off on you here at the end.
Absolutely.
All right, let's go to the next matchup, Washington at Buffalo. Who are you looking at in this game?
With Washington, what do we feel about Heineke? Do we think that he's their guy?
I haven't seen anything to prove that he's not their guy. I mean, yeah, he had that late interception that was just brutal, but they came away with the win. Other than that late dumb pick, he looked poised, he looked confident. He didn't look like a guy that started just he'd only started the playoff game. That was it, right?
It was that. He's played some spot up games, some appearance. Because I've noticed with Tyler Heineke, he loves Logan Thomas, and he loves going over the middle to Logan Thomas because Logan Thomas had 7 targets. Terry McLaurin had a big fantasy week last week as well. So I feel like they're still relevant. He loves J.D. McKissick, out of the backfield. So those are the 3 guys that he targets the most when he's their quarterback. I've noticed this in the last few starts that he has made.
I was worried about McLaurin. Honestly.
I was very worried about McLaurin.
He had 14 targets, 11 receptions, 170 yards touchdown. Don't worry. Heineke's going to give him the ball. But you're
Right.
right.
So
He likes Logan. He likes McKissick. That might hurt Antonio Gibson a little bit.
That little bit, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But as far as the receiving numbers go, but everyone that loved Gibson last year, this is what we saw. We saw McKissick in the receiving game, Gibson running the ball. Gibson's still involved a little bit in the receiving game. I think will still take a step up this year, but I don't think he's going to have that CMC type of season that Washington was saying that he was going to have.
And then from the Buffalo standpoint, Zach Moss is intriguing because he had 2 touchdowns last week. He was a guy, again, I have itchy trigger finger. I drafted him and I got rid of him because
there was
healthy scratched him.
There was false reports saying that he was a healthy scratch.
Right.
Then we find out later they were actually concerned with his health. They said he was good enough to play. They just didn't want to, force him to play. That's bigger news. When you hear that as a fantasy manager, you're like, okay, I can keep him. But when you hear healthy scratch, it's like, I almost dropped him too, and I haven't one on my teams.
Now, I dropped him for Elijah Mitchell, so I feel okay about that decision, right? But in that situation, he's a guy that because of the itchy trigger finger and bad news, he's available, and he's a guy that had 2 touchdowns, and so he's a guy that you could consider looking at. Because running back depth in fantasy football is always important. You look at the 49ers right now; they currently don't have any healthy running backs. So, so if you have a 49ers running back and it's a mash unit and you need to replace them, Zach Moss might be a good guy, to kind of look at for maybe a 1 week, 2 week start, until you figure out that situation or other situations that need to be figured out. So, I don't have a problem with Zach Moss, and the usual suspects for Bills.
And he's going to get the goal line touches. We just saw that. Singletary's actually been playing pretty well. But Moss did what he did. 8 touches, only played 28% of the snaps in the game. I expect that number to go up after a great performance like that. But it's still we're going to split the load between these two until someone really separates himself. You talked about the 49ers running backs. We'll probably get into it more a little bit. But for dynasty purposes, I would look at Jacquez Patrick. I think that's his name. San Francisco has a bunch of injuries. What's his face? Hasty is out for a while. Sermon has a concussion. Apparently, Elijah Mitchell's not fully healthy right now. Jacquez Patrick was signed off Cincinnati's practice squad, meaning he will be on the active roster for at least 3 weeks, I think it is. This guy is big. He was I think it was the CFL. He was dominated in that. This could be a guy that you could stash on your dynasty league. Don't pick him up in redraft until he does something. But with the way that San Francisco just runs through their running backs like crazy, all of them getting hurt, this wouldn't be a bad guy to pick him up and just stash on that dynasty team.
Absolutely agree with you. And don't trade George Kittle. Please don't. Because I look, I've been pissed off. Okay, I was upset because look. I lost, and it was like he only got me 5 points, and I felt like I put you in that position to win, and I just was upset. Mm-hmm. But don't trade George Kittle. But in that situation, now I feel like George Kittle might get a lot of volume now because I think the biggest problem with the 49ers and his production has been Deebo Samuel because they've been targeting Deebo Samuel like crazy. But now that they're kind of off of the running back situation, I think now this might be a call for George Kittle to get some goal line targets and things of that nature. So,
what do you do with Ayuk? Do you drop him?
I've heard reports of immaturity. There's been conflicting reports about Ayuk. I don't really know how to feel about Ayuk, and that's a really good question. If there's other wide receivers that you see that are doing something like, I don't want to be a homer, but Hunter Renfro, the guy from the Vikings that we just mentioned. If you have guys like that available, I would be okay replacing that because that they're going to play week to week, and that they're going to do something and have more production. Right. With Brandon Ayuk, there's too many questions involved right there. And you can't use an IR spot for him because he's not IR. So it's kind of interesting.
You can't use an IR spot for a crappy player.
Yeah. So
I don't know. I'm keeping him right now. I'm going to give him 1 more week. I need to see targets at least. The fact that, that Trent Sherfield is out targeting him is just ridiculous.
Ridiculous. It's crazy.
And this is a guy that really stepped up when Kittle and Deebo were hurt last year and all the running backs as well. It's goofy to me. And maybe there's some immaturity issues that we don't fully know about. But I wouldn't trade him just yet. Let's go to the Chicago at Cleveland matchup. The big question is, is Odell going to play in this game? If he does, are you putting him in your starting lineup?
That's a good question. I don't know if I would start him this week because I gotta see him in full capacity, but with Jarvis Landry going down on IR, that's another situation where I'm kind of looking at Donovan Peoples-Jones. I'm kind of looking at some of their tight ends, if I need a tight end, because who else is gonna catch the ball for them? And this would definitely be a week where you would want an Odell to come back just because Jarvis is out, so if he does play, it wouldn't shock me, but would I go with him this week? The Bears are a tough defense, and after seeing what they did to Cincinnati last week, I'm mindful of them having a tough defense. And Baker Mayfield has been kind of turnover prone, in some of these games. Not necessarily all that turnover prone, but late game interceptions, things of that nature. I don't know if this will be the best week for Odell, but in the coming weeks, I would start Odell. I
agree. I'm trying to be a homer as well, but Jalen Johnson has the top PFF ranking right now quarterbacks and one-on-one matchups. So that'd be a tough, first game for Odell to come back to. And if Odell does play, Donovan Peoples-Jones would be a guy I would look at because outside of Jalen Johnson, Chicago lacks, great cornerback play. It's really bad, actually. They just look so good because they're forcing so many turnovers last week against Joe Burrow. They picked them off 3 times in a row. So, but what about on the Chicago side? Are you worried about Allen Robinson, Darnell Mooney? I mean, Robinson's gotten off to a slow start. He had it was like a 40-yard pass just right into his breadbasket, just went right through his arms.
See, the thing that I fear about your coach is that you're going to overly turn the Fields into a running quarterback, right? You're going to put him in a lot of positions where he has to run, and I don't know how much they trust him as a passer as of yet. And I would just say, just put him out there, like I seen last week before. So there's a running joke between my friends that I look like Tyrod Taylor. That has nothing to do with anything. I just want to say that I look like Tyrod Taylor.
I had to slip it in there real quick.
I saw Tyrod Taylor, a similar quarterback to Justin Fields, get off on them last week. So seeing that game script, it's really manageable. And I would kind of, since NFL's a copycat league, kind of look at what the Texans did a little bit. And your guys' skill players are a lot better than the Texas skill set players. Mm-hmm. He had his way with them. He got out of the pocket, he used his legs, he threw a little bit, So I think this could be a game where Justin Fields does very well. But it just, to me, depends completely on game script and just completely on the coach.
Yeah.
If you have Allen Robinson, he's your top wide receiver, you're just not going to bench him because who else is better than Allen Robinson? So I'm going to still keep Allen Robinson, but it's very far. David Montgomery is another guy. I'm going to keep David Montgomery because you're just not going to bend in the run just because you have a rookie quarterback in there. So, I'm going to keep everything simple,
Mm-hmm. I agree. All right, let's go to the Baltimore-Detroit matchup. Who are you looking at?
Baltimore-Detroit. I like Tyson Williams. He's been running with confidence, and the Ravens have confidently thrown him out there. So if you have Tyson Williams available, I would definitely use Tyson Williams because we know that the things are going to stay the same is the Ravens are going to run the football. He's had a touchdown in 2 consecutive weeks. Latavius Murray has been getting, short yardage runs. Marquis Brown in the slot too. Can he get some love in the slot? He's been doing amazing things in the slot. Mm-hmm. I've been loving what I've been seeing from Marquis Brown. So those are some of the guys that I like. TJ Hawkinson on the Lions has been a beast. I've made the prediction that he's going to be the top tight end this year in fantasy football.
The top one?
Huh?
The top wide receiver over Kelsey.
I thought it was going to be him and Waller. I thought it was going to be between
no Kelsey.
Him and Waller.
Kelsey's is out of it.
Top 3 with Kelsey. Top 3 with Kelsey. But I think, but the reason why I thought that with TJ Hawkinson is volume. He's going to get a lot of the volume, right? Mm-hmm. Quintez Cephas had a great Monday Night Football performance.
He did.
I like Quintez Cephas a lot. Deandre Swift and their backfield is a very interesting dynamic that's going on in the backfield.
I like both the players. I don't like them playing on the same team.
Yeah, it's weird. It's definitely weird because how they're used. Mm-hmm. That's the thing when you're trying to be too creative. Is like one guy has a rhythm and then you take him out and then you throw another guy in and then he has to reclaim the rhythm that he once had. I don't like that too much. But the one thing that I do see with DeAndre Swift is he's getting a lot of targets out of the backfield. And most of his points are coming from targets and throws out of the backfield. So if you have him in PPR, it's like he's one of the best PPR running backs you can find.
Yeah. Well, what concerns me is Jamal was very heavily utilized in the receiving game the week before. So I would just like to see a little bit more consistency between the two. Are you starting Marquis Brown this week, though?
For a spot start, like for flex, I could see it. I wouldn't have a problem with it. Like we said tonight, if you don't feel comfortable about Brandon Cooks and you see, Hollywood Brown, I think that's a better matchup for sure.
Okay. Let's move on to the 0-2 Indianapolis Colts going to Tennessee to take on the Titans and Derrick Henry. That Colts team with Wentz, being out in this game, are you confident in Michael Pittman Jr. at all, or what are you doing?
Pittman was a breakout last week, but with the quarterback situation, that scares me a lot because there's not a lot of information that we're getting right now. And then when you say the 2 quarterback system, usually when you run a 2 quarterback system, you see Brett Hundley as the runner and you see Jacob Eason as the guy that throws the ball. So I don't know how he's going to work with rhythm. And I don't know. Like if anybody on the Colts is going to do anything, I feel like it's going to be a running game. I think it's going to be Taylor. I think or
Nyheim Hines.
Nyheim Hines. You're going to toss the ball out of the backfield a little bit, but it's hard for me to trust any of their wide receivers at this point without knowing who the quarterback is going to be. And as far as the Titans are concerned, you're never going to bench Derrick Henry. Never in your life are you going to do it. I think now the wide receivers are going to start to get a little bit more involved. Ryan Tannehill has struggled a little bit for fantasy football purposes. He's been looking kind of like a game manager a little bit. And that has a lot to do with Todd Dowling, the offensive coordinator. I don't want to go on and rant about him because I could do it all day. He was a Raider guy. I don't like him at all. But it's more of it's a situation where he's starting to get a little bit more confident, and these defensive backs are kind of creeping up a little bit to try to stop the run. Play action is starting to work a little bit more. Now I can start taking the shots to A.J. Brown, and I can start taking the shots to Julio Jones. So I'm liking this matchup for them a lot, all the Titans wide receivers. And it seems like a Ryan Tannehill type of game. It should be a Ryan Tannehill type of game.
Well, Indianapolis, it'd be pretty crazy if they started out 0-3, but they've had 3 tough matchups to start the season.
And injuries, man. Like, you can't predict those at all.
You can predict Carson Wentz getting hurt.
Oh, absolutely. Death taxes and him getting injured.
What's crazy is Indianapolis is known to have a really good offensive line. The second Carson Wentz steps on the field with that line, they don't look like a good unit at all. It's like his bad play just spreads around the whole offense. I don't get it. All right, let's look at the Chargers going to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. You were talking about Herbert earlier. Would you feel confident in him starting in this game?
I don't like him amongst other quarterbacks. I feel more comfortable with Teddy Bridgewater. I feel more comfortable with Daniel Jones just for spot starts. Teddy Bridgewater has the Jets. You know my motto with the Jets. I will start me versus the Jets, Tyrod Taylor. But no, Teddy Bridgewater, Daniel Jones. They're just quarterbacks with better matchups than him right now. However, I do think it's going to be a high scoring game. It's just the simple fact that Justin Herbert has some bad luck. Like last week, he threw some interceptions, but then he threw some touchdowns, and they called his touchdowns back. Mm-hmm. It's like you hate to predict that, but I would rather go with the simpler matchups. But I love his weapons. Like Mike Williams has been, he's been a revelation this year.
Is he an every week must start now?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You have to go with Mike Williams every week. Another guy to me you have to go with every week is Jared Cook. Like I love the tight end Jared Cook. Like he's been getting a lot of targets. Like last week he got like six targets. The week before he got a touchdown, and then last week he had a touchdown call back. So he's been looking for him in the goal line. So if you need a tight end, I think Jared Cook is a must add for your tight end position. I like all the Austin Eckler. He likes to throw the ball out of the backfield, so I'm loving Austin Eckler. Keenan Allen is a no-duh, like it's a no-brainer. So, his weapons are great. He's going to throw for a lot of yards. It's just the turnovers that's been scaring me because he has been throwing the ball. He's been throwing a lot of interceptions as of late. That's what scares me. But the yardage is going to be there. I think he's third or fourth in the league in yardage. So that's the turnovers, but the yardage is what, is going to be consistent.
Mm-hmm. Kansas City, obviously you're going to start Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill. Even though he had an off week last week, you're still going to submit him into your starting lineup. My big questions are, how do we feel about McCole Hardman and Clyde Edwards-Helaire at this point?
That's a good question. McCole, I'm going to start off with Helaire.
Okay.
Helaire, man, after last week, that fumble, you can't do that. And he just hasn't –
fumble since high school.
Right. You can't do that. And he hasn't – when he came out of the draft, that was the closest thing to Brian Westbrook that I've seen. And it's just like, it has not translated in the leagues thus far.
They don't use him as a pass catcher.
And they don't use him as a pass catcher. It's just the way that they use him is just pretty weird. And at this point, I feel like there's better running backs than him, right? Like when we start to get on running backs that I like, Cordero Patterson, for example, is a guy that you could look at instead of a Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And I feel more comfortable going with him, than I would a Clyde Edwards-Helaire, matchup purposes wise and the way that he's used. The way that the Falcons use him is the way I think that the Chiefs should use Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and they just don't. So I don't know, but I know he's going to start in a lot of leagues just because you drafted him so high. But
because of his name. But I think this is the week where you need to just sit him.
Yeah.
If he has a good week, okay, let's get back on the Edwards-Helaire train. What confuses me is they had an opportunity to draft Deandre Swift and Jonathan Taylor, two guys that I think are better rushers than Edwards-Helaire, but they drafted him to be a pass catcher. What do? They don't use him as a pass catcher. They use Jerick McKinnon as a pass catcher in that offense. So I'm a little confused by that. What do you think about McCole Hardman, though?
And McCole Hardman, I think he's the type of guy I wouldn't necessarily start him and use him, but I would pick him up in deeper formats, and because he's a Chief and he's gonna do his work. But in that offense, you named the guys. It's Travis Kelce, it's Tyreek Hill. They're their primary targets. And if McCole Hardman happens to have one-on-one coverage, you're gonna throw the ball to McCole Hardman. So it's just there's just not a lot of volume for him there. It's just the volume is just
never
great.
Seems like. Outside of those three, there's a consistent fantasy player. I mean, one week you'll see, for example, last week, Brian Pringle had a really good game. DeMarcus Robinson will slip in and haul in a touchdown. Darrell Williams will take away touchdown opportunities from Edwards-Helaire. McKinnon, like we already talked about. I mean, there's just it seems like after that top tier of the big three, everyone's pretty even, and you can't really predict on like who's going to have the big game. So that's what scares me about McCole and the others. All right, let's get into the next matchup, Saints at New England. Alvin Kamara had one of his worst performances of his NFL career. Are you worried about him this week against New England?
I'm worried about the Saints in general.
Okay.
They didn't look very – because week one, you had high hopes, but then, week two, they look bad. That's Jameis Winston's career. Like, one week he looks amazing, and the next week he doesn't do anything. Mm-hmm. And speaking of itchy trigger fingers, I feel like Sean Payton has one with him. He's on a very short leash. We could see Taysom Hill anytime now, and from that standpoint, what number one target do you go with? You told me last week about their tight end, and you're absolutely right about the tight end. Like, he didn't do anything, so it's just – and this is not the week where you find yourself because, Bill Belichick's defense – you see what he did last week to Zach Wilson, like he turns your insecurities into like reality, so it's a scary prospect this week, for any Saints player. Like it's just, like I've yet to see any, my guy was Marquis Callaway, and that I haven't seen anything from Marquis Callaway. I haven't seen any consistency from any of their targets or wide receivers. Alvin Kamara is the guy, and I feel like we know that, but who else knows that? The rest of the league knows that. Mm-hmm. So that's who you're going to shut down if you're.
But still, eight carries for 5 yards, and then you're just done with them?
The game flow is just not consistent for anything because it's like with Jameis Winston as a quarterback, you kind of have to baby him a little bit. You kind of have to make him feel confident and get him in his rhythm, and he's more of a rhythm type of player. And, you want to get your best player involved, but you also want to get your quarterback in rhythm. Mm-hmm. And if he's not in rhythm, the sink ships, so it's just like, it's just kind of just, I don't know, bro. Like,
all right, stay away from all Saints. Still put Kamara in your lineup.
Yeah.
And that's about it, right?
Yeah.
That's about it.
How do you feel about Damian Harris?
I was just about to bring him up. I love what I see. I mean, he had 100 yards on the ground first week. He had that beast mode of a carry that was like a 30-something yard carry and dragging defenders in the end zone, gets the touchdown, 62 yards on the ground. He's the guy that they're going to give the ball to. I mean, that's just plain and simple. They don't like – I mean, James White had a rushing touchdown last week, but he's not going to be taking any carries away from Damian Harris. Ramondre Stevenson hasn't done much with his opportunities. I love him. I mean, Damian Harris is a starting running back for a solid team, a team that wants to run the ball. So I'm confident in starting him as a flex option.
this week, because like here's the thing, and I have fantasy advice for you because like I have this pick on one of my leagues. Okay, so Saints, me knowing the information of this, the Saints have only given up one rushing touchdown in fantasy football since last year, right? So they're pretty good against the run. So I'm in a situation where I have Harris, I have Swift, I have Elijah Mitchell, and I have Javonte Williams. Right, I'm going to start Derrick Henry. So that's I'm starting Derrick Henry. So I have those 4 running backs. I'm stuck on who to go with because
Javonte still scares me because they're going to give Melvin the ball.
Right,
but he's looked really good with his opportunities,
and they have the Jets,
and they have the Jets. But I feel your concern on Harris. I mean, the Saints are a tough matchup, but I just don't see anyone else that they're really going to use a lot against them. I mean, they're going to run the ball no matter what. And then maybe it's not pretty. Maybe he gets, a little short yardage touchdown. I know they don't allow any on a regular basis. But if Elijah Mitchell is healthy, there's no other back on that team, first of all, that's healthy, or that's going to take away his opportunities. So I like Elijah Mitchell. Who was the other one you said?
Deandre Swift.
PPR?
Not standard.
See, I don't like him in standard.
But in standard, he's been getting me. So last week I started and he got me 13 points. And last week, week 1, he got me 24. So it's the volume on the targets that he gets. He's getting consistent targets. The carries, not so much, but the targets is what I'm looking at. He's getting me targets.
Yeah. And like I said, I feel like Jamal's still going to be utilized in the passing game. The fact that Swift, week 1 he had 11 carries, week 2 he had 8. Now he's done well with those carries, but they're still going to give Williams the ball. I just don't know. I mean, Swift's doing fine, but I kind of like Elijah Mitchell more if Mitchell is healthy.
If he plays, I'm definitely going with Elijah Mitchell because there's really no other running backs the 49ers have. Yeah. So he's going to get the brunt of the carries. And the 49ers each and every year just ravish the Packers on the run every year. So it's I'm definitely going with that. So that's what I'm looking at. But as of right now, I'm just like, the thing that scares me about the Patriots guy, you got James White. James White comes in and he's like catching balls out of the backfield. So
he's going to do that though.
He's going to always do that. So he takes away some of his carries with touchdowns because he scored a touchdown a week ago. It took Harris to have that beast mode run for him to even score and jump on the board. And even in that situation, he got me 13 points. So it's like, what's 13 points is a lot, but if it wasn't for that touchdown, he's very touchdown dependent at the same time. He's getting carries, he's getting the yardage, but he got 100 yards, which was only equivalent to 11 points week 1.
Right.
And then when he gets in the goal line situation, they put in James White. So that's where I'm just like, I don't know, So that's it's the Saints defense. If it wasn't the Saints defense, if it was just another defense, I'd be like, I'm gonna go, Harris. But because the Saints do have a very good run defense, it's just like I don't know this week.
Right.
It's kind of tough,
So what we're taking away from this is if you don't have another decent running back on your team, feel okay about Damian Harris in your starting lineup. But if you have a guy like Elijah Mitchell or someone that's kind of even with a better matchup, go ahead and sit him. Right.
Right. That's how I feel.
Okay. Atlanta at New York. You already talked about Cordero Patterson, one of the biggest waiver wire pickups this week. What do you do with Mike Davis then?
I still play with Mike Davis. Mike Davis is getting the carries. He's getting his. It's kind of a thunder and lightning type of thing where Mike is getting the carries where Cordero also getting carries, but he's also getting the targets out of the backfield. So I still feel comfortable with Mike Davis. It doesn't there's just nothing there. He's still getting his work.
And New York's a pretty good matchup as far as running backs go. So you would start both of them? I mean, not if they're both on your team, but you would feel confident in either one of them? Okay.
I'm good with either one of them, yeah. Okay. But I'm more, if we're talking about matchups, right, in this matchup, I love the Giants players. I think that the Giants offense is going to do very, very good work. I think this is the week we see Saquon Barkley be the old Saquon Barkley.
Hopefully.
I think, this is the week where I think Daniel Jones has actually been playing quietly pretty well. He has to cut off on the clumsy plays where he trips over his own feet and he fumbles, stuff like that. Like, we don't need that.
He's still their leading rusher. So
yeah, he's still their leading rusher.
Falling over.
Right. Yeah. So this is a great matchup for him. It's a great matchup for Sterling Shepard. This is a great matchup for. I think Kenny Golladay is going to get in the end zone.
I was going to ask you, is this the week we finally see Kenny Golladay be more involved?
Yep. I feel so. I feel like it. I'm curious about Evan Ingram too. Like I don't trust Evan Ingram because he always gets injured. However, in fantasy football, you always need a tight end, and if Evan Ingram shows a little bit of something and he's included,
is he gonna play?
He said he's going to play. They said he's questionable.
Yeah. Hopefully, he hasn't played yet. So
he hasn't played yet. But if he plays this week, I'm not saying pick him up this week, but I'm saying if he plays this week and he does something well, I would be okay looking at him in his direction. I would be okay with that, because he has the talent. It's just he just always hurt.
Mm-hmm. All right, so pick one: Cordero Patterson, Mike Davis, or Saquon Barkley.
Saquon a million times over Saquon.
Even with all his struggles, outside of that 41-yard run last week. Nothing.
This is one of those confidence builder games for him, I think, because how bad the Falcons defense is. Mm-hmm. Theoretically, like I said, if it was against anybody else, I don't know how I would feel because their offensive line is kind of brittle right now. They just lost their starting center, I believe, or right guard. They lost one of their starters for the season, and he opens up a lot of the holes in the middle. He's a guy that has been, he's credited for that. So the fact that he's hurt, that kind of scares me a little bit, but I think it's because of how bad the Falcons defense is. This is the Saquon Barkley week.
Okay. Are you confident in Kyle Pitts at this point? In his second career game, he caught 5 of 6 targets for 73 yards, 12.3 PPR points.
Yeah.
You like him?
I like him. I do. I think that week one, it was just they had a tougher matchup. Mm-hmm. And the Eagles defense is a lot better than advertised.
Yeah.
And he just had a hard time with that defense. And it wasn't him, it was pass rush. Jalen Mayfield, the rookie left tackle, was getting blown by Brandon Graham and those guys, Fletcher Cox. That's just really what happens. It was offensive line more than it was, Matt Ryan's connection to him, So I think as the pass protection gets better, as Matt Ryan gets more time, we're going to see him, do a little bit more.
Okay. Let's move on to the Bengals at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Najee finally getting his first touchdown last week. Are we feeling confident in him against the Bengals team that pretty much held David Montgomery in check last week?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a run-heavy game because Ben didn't practice all week. He has some type of shoulder, arm, chest injury. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, he's old. Yeah.
And he's old, right?
And he looks old.
And he looks old. He looks slow. They said Mason Rudolph could actually start. So the insert, I can't stand Mason Rudolph. He has the biggest punch me face I've ever seen in my life. But it's not. We're moving on.
So you throw a helmet at him or what?
Oh, I would definitely throw a helmet at him. I throw a cleat. Whatever's available in my left hand, he's getting thrown at.
Okay.
It's just one of those games where I think they're going to run the football because I don't know how much they've practiced throwing the ball this week just because Ben didn't play. And for Ben's sake, I hope he sits out this week because he needs that. And if my starting quarterback hasn't attempted a pass since the following week, it's kind of concerning. I'm just saying. So I think it's going to be a heavy Najee game. I really do.
Okay. And Deontay Johnson looks like he might be out as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So do you feel confident in Juju or Claypool?
If I feel confident anybody, it probably would be Juju because Juju's used a little bit more in the run game, like reverses, like bubble screens and things like that of that nature. Because that's where I feel like the Steelers are going to get the brunt of their yards is yards per catch. Like they're going to a lot of yaks. They're going to get a lot of bubble screens. They're going to get a lot of short passes. Watching their game last week when they played the Raiders, that's exactly what they did because they couldn't find rhythm down the field. So they were using a lot of bubble screens and things of that nature. And especially if Ben plays. He's not throwing the ball deep because he has no arm right now. So, whoever's get better after the catch is who I'm going with.
So on the other side, Cincinnati, it looks like T. Higgins is probably a no-go for this week. Jamar Chase has played, very well so far. He only had 4 targets last week, but he had that big receiving touchdown. He's had a touchdown in each of his first 2 games. But I want to talk about Tyler Boyd. Are we thinking about him as a flex option with Higgins out?
Possibly, very possibly. I don't. That's another question I had too. The Steelers' defense. the Steelers defense has a number of injuries. You know, TJ Watts, I don't know if he's going to play or not. He hasn't really practiced that much with the hamstring injury. Joe Hayden has been dealing with hamstring injuries. Devin Bush has been dealing with injuries. Tyson Alualu broke his ankle. So they have a lot of starters out on defense. So with that being said, the Steelers defense looked like a shell of themselves last week, you know, after the second half, after all their injuries started to occur. And this is the week I think that Joe Burrow could get a lot of yards, and I think that Boyd could benefit from all those injuries. So I wouldn't mind it at all. I would not.
Yeah, and he produced a pretty good week, 7 receptions for 73 yards. So he's a good play in PPR leagues for sure. Arizona at Jacksonville. Kyler Murray looking like a star. Rondale Moore looking like an up-and-coming star. Hopkins doing Hopkins things. Max Williams, a surprising week for at the tight end position. Christian Kirk looks fine. Chase Edmonds looks fine. But my question is, do you drop James Conner?
I don't like James Conner in that offense. I don't. I think that the Cardinals' offense is one of those offenses they have way too many mouths to feed. I think Rondale Moore, for example, first and foremost, he's an add in every league possible. He's just going to keep getting work, and he's going to keep getting those targets. You know, and that's one of those reasons why you would drop a James Conner, because you have this young guy getting a lot of, you know, opportunity. They're a team that's shown that they want to pass. And when they decide that they do want to run, you know, it's Chase Edmonds. You know, he's a guy, like, if I was to do anything with Conner, I would just stash him, you know, just in case of injuries or something like that. And it's always good to have running backs. But he's not a guy I would consistently start week after week.
Right. I asked that question because I saw something that said that he was the top dropped running back after week 2.
Which is understandable completely.
Yeah, for sure. But let's talk about Rondale Moore real quick. Led the team in receiving yards, targets. He had 7 receptions, also had a touchdown. I mean, we heard great things coming into the season, and it was more like, oh, maybe he's a dynasty type of player, but he's already showcasing that he's got elite talent. Is he a guy that you think is already an every week starter at this point?
Oh yeah, I mean, I feel comfortable with him, and he would be a solid flex play, you know, especially depending on matchups. This week's matchup, Jaguars, that's a no-brainer, right? Last week's matchup with the Vikings are still a strong defense, but still, you know. But yeah, he's a guy that Kyler Murray is going to look for a lot. You know, he's quick, he's jittery, he's fast. If I had to choose between him and Christian Kirk, it's definitely going to be him.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I would feel okay. I think that he's legitimately their number 2. I think AJ Green he's done.
Yeah.
You know,
you're done with him?
He's
given up on
done.
AJ Green?
Yeah, he's not. I don't think he's going to be a part of that offense. I think it's a fast. The offense that the Cardinals are running is a very fast offense, and he just doesn't have the speed anymore, you know, to keep up with that pace. So yeah, no, I'm
he's
going to
getting targets.
He's getting his targets.
6 in his first 2 games. He had a touchdown last week, but after that touchdown, it was like, where is he? He's gone. Right. He's out of the game plan. So I agree. I don't know if I drop him just yet, but I'm not thinking about starting him at all. Yeah. No. So what do you do with James Robinson at this point? I know that a lot of people were high on him after the ETN injury. I don't like him. He's not getting a lot of touches. Jacksonville's always playing from behind. He doesn't get involved in the pass catching at all. So what's your take on him?
Our first show, I said not to draft him. I don't like him. I haven't liked him all season. And because to me, what spoke volumes is the fact that you did draft Travis Etienne after him coming off a good year. And knowing how Urban Meyer coaches, James Robinson's not his kind of running back. He likes the guys that could catch the ball out of the backfield, do a little bit of everything. He likes dynamic running backs, and James Robinson's just not dynamic enough for that offense. And I felt personally that Laviska Shenault was going to get more carries than him. I just thought that because he does a little bit more.
And he still could. I mean,
yeah, there's
a lot of fantasy managers out there that are already giving up. He played banged up. He got hurt. He left the game. He had 7 targets. He just only came down with 2 of them, and he went for -3 yards. But I mean, do you still feel confident in him at all?
So Laviska?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because I don't think the Jaguars are a very good team. I've seen, speaking of drops, I've seen DJ Chark get dropped in some leagues and stuff. I don't see them being a very good team this year. I think that he has one foot in in football, 1 foot at USC, and he could have an aneurysm at any time. You know, he told forgot what coach he said. I think it was Vic Fangio. He told Vic Fangio the NFL is like playing Alabama every week. So he said. So it's like I don't feel like he's cut out to coach NFL. I don't feel like he wants to coach NFL. I think he just did it for the money and the opportunity. But to be honest with you, I would never trust Urban Meyer. He's gonna. I wouldn't be shocked if he pulled a Bobby Petrino. Honestly, like I would not be shocked if he pulled a Bobby Petrino. And for those reasons alone, I don't trust any Jaguars, because if I don't trust their coach, why would I trust y'all? Yeah. So I just
So you don't believe in Marvin Jones at all? Before the season, I was taking Jones over Chark in every mock draft, and I was advising people to do it. And so far, he's looked pretty decent. I mean, he's led the team in targets and receptions. He's had 2 weeks in a row. So here, week 1, 9 targets. Week 2, 11 targets, a touchdown in each. Do you believe in him?
Because, I mean, with the Jaguars, they're going to be down a lot. So garbage points are – with that team, garbage points are important, right? Those behind points, because we got to throw the ball. That's why I like Marvin Jones, because I want to see, like, how much of his targets come in the fourth quarter, third quarter.
He's when they're used behind. To that garbage time, too.
He's used to the garbage time. So that's the type of – that's the only reason why I think Jaguars players have any – type of relevancy is because of garbage points. That's why I don't like James Robinson, because they're going to play behind a lot, and he's not a type of guy that, you know, is going to. He's a rhythm runner, and the Jaguars aren't going to be in a lot of rhythm, so they're going to be behind a lot. So yeah, I like Marvin Jones for those purposes, being behind.
Jets at Broncos. We touched up a little bit about some Broncos players. What a breakout performance from Cortland Sutton last week. There were questions on, is Sutton going to step up? Is it going to be KJ Hamler? Are we going to see Tim Patrick? He did score a touchdown, but obviously Cortland Sutton was the guy. And it's a little concerning because in week 1, he wasn't relevant. He had 1 reception. That was when Judy played most of that game. Are we starting Sutton this week?
Oh, absolutely. It's the Jets. I start my grandmother against the Jets, bro. I start anybody versus the Jets. So, yeah, no, absolutely. I'm starting him. I'm absolutely starting him for sure. Yeah.
All right.
I don't think twice about it.
We're starting Bridgewater. We're starting Javonte. We're starting Bridgewater's backup. We're starting them all.
I'm starting John Elway. I'm starting all of them. Like it's Terrell Davis, you know, Rod McCaffrey, Christian McCaffrey's dad, Ed McCaffrey. Well, I said Rod McCaffrey, Rod Smith, all of them. Like
all of them. All right.
Realistically though, I'm going to start Cortland Sutton. I feel good about Noah Fant. The running back situation is I like Javonte Williams, of course, but Melvin Gordon's getting a lot of carries.
I love think if you have to, you can still start Melvin.
Yeah, yeah. I like Bridgewater. I'm definitely starting Bridgewater. If you guys have like those daily fantasy football leagues, that's my quarterback that I'm starting in some of those leagues, because I bought him for like $18 or something like that. Well, depending on the league that you're in, because I don't know like the cash value of all the leagues.
I submitted an article last week on the East West Football Network, and it was all DFS related. And Bridgewater was my player of the week to start in your DFS lineups.
He's mine too this week. And
he hasn't. I mean, he's top 20 fantasy points in each, and he has a really good matchup this week. So keep riding the hot hand.
He doesn't throw interceptions neither. He's very safe with the football. Mm-hmm. He's running. He's not much of a running quarterback, but he runs. Like he eludes. He's smart. He's at home. He has a pretty easy matchup. You know. Yeah, I'm definitely going with him. That's been my guy for DFS too. Him, Daniel Jones, even Sam Darnold. Those have been my 3 this year that I've won with, just because of the matchups. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we still got 5 games left. We're going to roll through them a little bit quicker now.
Okay.
Because I know the Thursday night matchup's about to start.
Okay.
Miami at Las Vegas. Take it away. This is your team. What are you feeling?
I like their defense for sure. Because, I will start the Raiders defense if you need a spot start for defense.
Tua's not playing, right?
Tua's not playing. So, you know, they always played well, even when their defense was garbage against Brissett. So I'm starting defense. I love Hunter Renfro. Hunter Renfro has been getting a lot of targets because what tends to happen with the Raiders is, you know, Waller gets double teamed over the middle, and they've been following the Renfro up from behind. I think Kenyon Drake is going to be a guy that I would look at as well, because I don't think I don't think Jacobs is playing this week. So ankle, toe injury.
No Peyton Barber. You're not going to play him.
Peyton Barber's going to get goal line touches, I think. Yeah. But Kenyon Drake's the guy that's getting the backfield touches out of the backfield in the run. So Kenyon Drake, if you need a running back. But yeah, those are some of the guys that I'm looking at. Brian Edwards might have a big week again, and it wouldn't. And the only reason why I'm not comfortable 100% yet with Henry Ruggs is because they only see him as a deep threat. Mm-hmm. So if he could beat him deep, then
he's the Robbie Anderson of the Raiders.
He's the Robbie Anderson of the Raiders, basically. Okay. Yeah.
All right, Miami. I think Gaskin would be the only guy that you would start confidently. Yeah, he is coming off a bad game, but I think he'll produce enough that he has to produce for that Miami team. Let's move on to Tampa Bay at the Rams. Real quick, I know people are scared because they have Mike Evans, Antonio Brown, and Chris Godwin. What the heck do you do? Just go ahead and start all three. One of them's probably not going to have a good game. We don't know which one it's going to be. Mike Evans was the star last week. Antonio and Godwin were the stars.
Antonio's not playing. He has COVID.
Oh, that's right. Never mind. Disregard. That's future advice. Start Gronk too. Oh my goodness.
Oh my God, Gronk's a revelation. Yeah, same. I don't want to beat a dead horse. You said everything I have to say. Start all of them. Mm-hmm. As far as the Rams are concerned.
Go to the Rams, yeah.
As far as the Rams are concerned, what's up with Darrell Henderson? Is he playing?
I think he's going to be a true game time decision. I mean, all the reports that I'm reading, they don't want to clarify if he's going to play or not. I think it's going to be a wait and see until 4:25 Eastern time. Hey, he's in, he's out. If he's out, Sony's a decent plug-in type of guy. Mm-hmm. I mean, he did well with the carries last week. As far as the rest of the Rams, I don't trust Tyler Higbee yet. He's coming off a pretty bad performance. Cooper Kupp is the man. Matthew Stafford and him connect a lot. That is his dude. I am worried about Robert Woods a little bit.
I think Robert Woods is going to eat this week. I really think he's going to eat this week because they know that Cooper Kupp's the guy. And I think they're going to game plan for Cooper Kupp to stop Cooper Kupp, which leaves Robert Woods open.
I kind of see – this is what we've seen the past 2 years. Kupp has a good game. Woods will go off the next week. Woods has a good game. It's Kupp's turn.
Robert Woods is my guy this week.
Okay. Seattle at Minnesota. Tyler Lockett's been very impressive. DK's still doing DK things. It's not as he's not hauling in all the touchdown receptions like last year because Tyler Lockett's the star on that receiving team right now. Chris Carson's playing fine. Russell Wilson's obviously a must start. On the other side, Dalvin. What are you doing with the receivers, though? You talked about KJ Osborne earlier.
I like KJ Osborne, man. Like he's been one of the best slot receivers in the league thus far. I don't really want to run down the stats because I don't want to misconstrue it, but I know he's had pretty high fantasy numbers the last couple of weeks. I like him, going forward. He's a guy that if you have a struggling wide receiver, I'm okay with replacing him and putting him on your roster.
He scored at least 14 in each of his two.
Okay, there you go.
So
right.
There you are. 91 and a touchdown last week on 5 receptions. He's been great. Justin Jefferson's still fantasy relevant. He's just not as dominant as last season. As far as same thing with Thielen, but I'm still going to start those guys. Right. Are you thinking about Kirk Cousins at all this week against Seattle, though?
I trust Kirk Cousins. I think that Kirk Cousins, as far as fantasy football, he's really underrated. So, yeah, I mean, I like him. But like I said, if you have Teddy Bridgewater, if you have some of these quarterbacks, I'm going with them over him. But
okay,
if they're not available, then yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the game has started. So let's just go through this really, really quick. Green Bay at San Francisco. Aaron Jones coming off that humongous game. Devontae doing his thing. Rodgers looks back. Tunyon, I don't know, hit or miss. What do you think about San Francisco, though?
I'm monitoring a running back situation because San Francisco is a team that wants to run the football. Like, that's what they want to do. They want to run the ball. If Elijah can play and he starts, then I like Elijah. If he doesn't play, I don't really know. But I think this is the George Kittle week. This is the week where you just trust George Kittle. I think he's going to be the main target, especially after seeing what T.J. Hawkinson did to that Packers defense.
Mm-hmm. All right, you heard it there. George Kittle is going to be the tight end one this week, according to Tarian, right? Philly at Dallas, Monday night. Devontae Smith is – I don't know what to do with him right now. He had, 14 receiving yards, 2 receptions. I don't know if I'm going to start him against Dallas. Diggs is playing really good on the other side of the ball. What do you suggest?
I actually like the Cowboys defense as a spot start if you need a defense. They've been generating turnovers, the last couple of weeks. They've held 2 really good – you're not holding Tom Brady in check, but when it comes down to it, they did have a positive game, like 6-7 fantasy points last week. They held Justin Herbert, down. So I think this would be a good spot start for their defense. What's the status on Amari Cooper? Do you know?
I just know he's questionable.
He hurt his chest. They said that's all I know. If Amari Cooper doesn't play, then CeeDee Lamb's going to eat. I like Cedric Wilson, as a not bad start.
If Cooper's not in, right?
If Cooper's not in, right? Yeah. Tony Pollard is a guy. He's a must-add.
That's what I wanted to ask you about.
In every format, I'm adding Tony Pollard.
And Zeke's not even playing bad. It's just he's getting to that point where you don't need to use him so much because Tony has, he's not as talented, but he is talented enough to receive the touches that he's being given. Are you starting Tony Pollard this week, though?
Yes.
Okay.
I am.
Philly's got a decent run defense, though.
They do have a decent, but he's been catching the ball out of the backfield as well. We don't know Amari Cooper's status. That's an extra receiver out there that you can line up anywhere, any which way. So, yeah, I do like him.
I think it's going to be a good week for Jalen Hurts as well.
Yeah.
As far as other Philadelphia Eagles go, do you trust Goddard, Ertz, or Jalen Reagor, or even Quez Watkins, who had a pretty decent week last week?
I believe Ertz is still out. I think he's out COVID thing. Okay. I believe. Dallas Goddard, I like. He's a good tight end. Watkins is more of a Rob. I don't like making Robbie Anderson a punchline, but he's a Robbie Anderson of the Eagles. He's only going to beat you deep. So
and that's what he did. That's what he did last week.
That's all he does. So I don't. Their only consistent weapon to me is Miles Sanders. To be honest with you, I don't know.
All right,
I'm still unsure. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we went through all the games. That about wraps it up here with the Fantasy GMs. Make sure to keep up to date on all of your fantasy news on the East West Football Network website. We will see you next week on Tuesday. I know we did it on Thursday this week. On Tuesday, we will be back. Enjoy tonight's game. Go Taylor Heineke.
General Mills.
Yeah, General Mills. All right, we'll see you guys.
This dude is skinny.